This next segment that I want to do isn't one that a lot of people would get excited about. Right at first, I'll have to admit that, but I am. I'm passionate about this segment that we're going to talk about, and that's going to be a powerful healing technique for people who suffer from depression, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, etc., and all the other variety of illnesses that are out there right now that are extremely hard for many of us to have treated effectively. Today we're going to talk about some really cool, I want to call it breakthrough information. Although it's been around a long time and we've been using it in our practice for a long time, there's a lot of people that still aren't aware that it's here, it's now, and it's available for everyone. Hi, I'm David Essel. Over 20-something years ago when I began this work, when people would talk about, back then, chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia, it was so poo-pooed. You know, most people in the healing arts, even a lot of people in my work of counseling and therapy and coaching, really didn't quite know what to do with these type of patients. And about 15 years ago, we had a major breakthrough, I mean a massive breakthrough, through doing deep emotional release work. And it's a lot different than what you might think. You know, in traditional emotional relief work, we go back into an individual who's suffering from depression, who's suffering from chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia, and you might say, you know, what is there anything that's hidden, anything submerged, experiences from childhood, high school, etc., etc., and they would say, well, you know, there was this event, and we'd have them write about it and talk about it, and that was it, you know, and then we'd move on. And that didn't get us very far, but like I said, over 15 years ago, we found in our work something that was so unbelievably profound, and how it started was with me. And isn't it the way that a lot of breakthroughs happen, right? But I was in an unbelievably deep clinical depression. Even though I was doing national television work and national radio work, I became agoraphobic. And that is that Monday through Friday, when I was not doing my media work, I was basically homebound. I might go out for a run, but you know, it wasn't every day. And I might have to go shopping every couple weeks for food, but I was literally in that locked-in syndrome. And it was through intense writing, I mean intense deep writing, and eventually psychotherapy, and I even used in the beginning some antidepressant drugs to help me with it. We broke out. We had this amazing breakthrough. And when I look back at that time, the number one component that got me into a place, and I was even coaching back then over the phone. All my work was on the phone. And what was fascinating is that when the adrenaline hit, you know, when the when I had to be on air or something, and there's been many people that have admitted this. There's been correspondents for 60 Minutes and many of the other television shows that you've probably read about their stories with deep clinical depression, that when the light went on, wow, they popped and they did their work, and then when it was over, they went home and hid. And that's basically what I did. And so I started this work after finding for myself, like I wrote over 300 writings to get to the core. And some of you watching right now might go, who's suffering from a deep clinical depression, or maybe you have a loved one that is, or maybe you're suffering from chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia, and you go, oh my God, I don't have the energy to do that writing. I didn't think I did either, quite frankly. But we have to remember this. Whenever we want a great reward in life, we must be willing to put out a great effort, okay? And for those of us who suffer with chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia or a depression or anything else, one of the things we have a hard time with is finding the energy to treat ourselves, right? Or the energy to go into treatment. And even though we have those low energy levels, we have to follow a process. And I take clients through a process that is, I mean, really unbelievable, but it started with myself. And I wasn't a big fan of writing at the level that I'm talking about. I wasn't a fan of going back over and writing about past events and releasing emotions and releasing resentments. What we have found is two of the hugest negative emotions that helps to create some of these conditions is shame, guilt, and resentment. Those three, shame and guilt, are the two biggest ones by far. And then the resentment is number 3. Now, Now, in many of the circles, we can see a genetic link between depression, we can see a genetic link between fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, etc. Our ancestors, because they didn't have the terminology for that, or because these type of conditions were definitely submerged, wouldn't have said, hey, guess what? You know what? I have chronic fatigue in the 1800s or 1600s or whatever it might be. But it was still there. So we know that it's going to take a variety of different tools to have a breakthrough. But in my work as a spiritual counselor and a relationship coach and a life coach is that we have found that the #1 tool that offers the greatest breakthrough is what we're talking about here. You know, I've worked with, and this is not, there's no kidding, I'm not kidding around here at all. I've worked with people that have suffered from CFS and fibromyalgia and deep clinical depression for years, that within anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks of doing this type of work on a weekly basis, being held accountable, that's crucial. Going into places that we may not want to go by ourselves, but we can go if we're led by a professional, have seen dramatic changes. They've seen energy levels increase. We've seen a decrease in pain on a daily basis, a decrease in anxiety, a decrease in the use of pain medication and anti-anxiety medication in just a few months. Now, this is with individuals that have been suffering from one of these many conditions we're talking about here for years. I mean for years. And it doesn't happen overnight. I'm not going to say that, you know, have a session with me on the phone and bingo, you're going to be healed. But I've worked with people from all over the country, and a lot of it via phone sessions, believe it or not. And we have seen in a few weeks of them doing the work, unbelievable breakthroughs. It is deep emotional work. It's deep emotional release work. You may even be sitting here watching this going, oh my God, I've done enough of that. But the difference with our work then with a lot of other work out there, not to say the other work isn't effective, is that we have a pattern that we follow. We have a placement that we follow where that we go deep on a regular basis and we continue to stay there for a specific amount of time. Now there's relief. We don't stay in all this stuff 24/7 by any means, but we do it enough to see a breakthrough. As I mentioned, you know, when someone writes a letter of forgiveness to themselves, or they do some written work to release shame or guilt, or they were raised in an alcoholic family, or they were raised in an abusive family, or there's a lot of course similar traits with people with CFS, fibro, and clinical depression. There's many other things in this too. But you know, when we're raised in that kind of a family, we don't normally go to the extent we need to release it. And trust me, doing a couple letters of forgiveness, it's not going to cut it. But we do know that if you have the faith and if you surrender to a new type of program, the type of program we use, we know that you can find great relief. For me personally, to know that writing was going to have that immense of an impact on my life, and it probably took about a year to recover, quite frankly. I'm not saying it was really easy for me by any means, but you know, like 6 months later, I started to feel this unbelievable response, and then a year later, I was totally out of it. Well, we've condensed that now, because that was 15, 18 years ago. We've condensed it now, and we've found people that after 4 weeks, they're starting to see a shift. Heck, I've worked with someone recently that after 2 weeks saw a dramatic shift. That's someone who's been suffering from both CFS and fibro for years. If I can help you, contact us. TalkDavid.com. There's a lot of great work we can do together. TalkDavid.com. Share this. If you've suffered from any of these conditions, share it, because there's hope. There's a lot of hope out there for people that are willing to do the work, absolutely, and we know that we can offer that for you. So share this video. Don't forget to sign up at YouTube for our Super Slowdown account so all these come right to you, okay? Please have faith. Keep moving forward. We can win this. Bye-bye.